Hello everyone, welcome to another episode of Start Pause. I'm Brennan and I'm joined by the omnipresent Bear. Bear, how you doing?
I'm doing fantastic.
What have you been playing?
Unfortunately, I haven't got to play very much this week. Real life stuff, I'm sure you understand that. But I did pick up Splatoon today, or Splatoon 2 rather. And it is quite fun.
All right, and I'm sure we're going to get into that shortly after we wrap this up.
Well, what are you playing, man?
Well, on top of being busy with real life stuff, as you were also, I've actually been working my way back and playing a few things that I didn't play at release. I just recently wrapped Season 1 of Hitman, and I love it. It is the best Hitman I've played in years.
I've never actually played a Hitman game, so...
Oh my god, they're so good. I love any game that lets you sneak around and be in places that you're not supposed to be. That's all Hitman is just being in places that you're not supposed to be. And I love it. I love it. On top of that, I've actually been juggling a couple of things. I wrapped up Hitman fairly quickly because it's only 6 episodes, and I started going back and playing the latest Thief game, which I know I might be the only person in the world that enjoys that game.
Once again, a game about sneaking.
Yeah, I guess I was just in the mood to be in places that I just wasn't supposed to be in. But it's certainly not the best game in the series. But for what it is, if you can pick it up cheap, it's worth it.
Yeah, I think I picked it up as a Games for Gold on Xbox One.
Oh yeah, totally worth it. Totally worth it, especially if you didn't have to pay for it. And then on top of that, after our discussion on the last episode, I've started replaying Earthbound on the 3DS.
Nerd.
Yep, so let's get into our first topic today. I'm glad you brought up Splatoon 2, because the first thing that we're going to talk about today is Nintendo being very Nintendo in the most Nintendo way.
Nintendo is the most Nintendo that has ever Nintendoed.
Now, we say that like it's one big stupid joke, but anybody who is a fan of Nintendo surely understands what that means. And if you don't, we're talking about the new Nintendo Switch voice chat app.
Yeah.
I'm never going to understand Nintendo's commitment to trying so hard to be different and sometimes failing spectacularly. This app is a great example.
It's like they try so hard to be different that they adamantly avoid convention. You have something that's like proven to work, like voice chat, voice chat servers to go with games, and you have... I mean, it's sort of expected now with most competitive games. So you'd think that wouldn't be a big deal for a big, developer, big AAA game.
But this is Nintendo we're talking about, who is just starting to figure out how to approach online. And they're not even doing that wonderfully, I would say.
No, their forays into... to apps and because I don't count Pokemon Go because that was done by Niantic.
Yeah,
Niantic. I don't count that, and their website, not the Nintendo website itself, but like the Nintendo Club and its predecessors.
Oh my god,
just terrible.
I absolutely hate the new Club Nintendo. Is the worst thing they've ever done.
I don't know that I've actually been back on it since signing up.
I was playing around with Breath of the Wild in the Switch menu, and I saw where you could redeem your physical copy for Club Nintendo coins. I did it, and I didn't even bother to look up and see what I got. I just did it and was like, and moved on, because the new system isn't as...
It's not as intuitive, and the last one wasn't really that intuitive either.
No, it wasn't, but it was very clear that, okay, you redeemed this game and you got this many coins, and then at a certain point you cash those coins in for a lot of cool stuff. And I still have some of that cool stuff. You don't get that anymore.
No.
You get discounts for other games, and I guess that's all right, but I have a double disc copy of the Majora's Mask soundtrack, and I would much rather have access to things like that.
Yeah, I ended up with a double disc soundtrack from the latest Smash Brother games. So I'm gonna miss stuff like that. But this is just another one of these things that like shows that Nintendo really doesn't know how to, I guess, embrace the internet culture.
I think almost all fans would agree that follow this rewards program, that they would prefer to have those physical items rather than, hats for your Miitomo character and junk like that.
Miitomo was garbage, by the way. It was fun for like a week for making terrible pictures.
Punch the lasagna.
Oh God.
Nintendo doesn't really get how a lot of things should work. Voice chat, which is the simplest thing imaginable, and you have to go through this app, and using the app, voice chat will only work when the app is open. If your phone locks, it cuts off.
Right, yeah, it'll disconnect you. And if anything, like if you get a call or you want to do any sort of multitasking, you can't do that because it'll disconnect you.
So not only are they doing this in the most backwards way possible, but they're not even doing it well.
It's not even just that. Like you have, when you are using it and it is open, you can only chat when you're in the game. There is no, even if you're like partied up with your friends in like a lobby, you can't chat with them. It's only in the game itself.
Really? I actually didn't know that. Right now you can only do this in Splatoon 2, correct?
That is my understanding.
I think that's the only thing that's on the app. As of this recording, Splatoon 2 is the only active game on the app. On top of all this, it's also reported that it's a huge battery drain.
Oh, yeah.
I fail to understand why they didn't just allow you to plug a headset mic into the Switch's headphone jack. Like, you can do that with the PlayStation 4. You can do that with the Xbox One.
Or even like have it connect through the controller itself. I mean, I don't know if I guess the signal between the controller and the console would allow it, but I mean, you're just using a USB-C port, so I wouldn't imagine that would be terribly difficult to develop. And I believe that the only option that we do have is the Hori headset, correct?
Yes, and we were talking before we started rolling here, and I love Hori's products. Hori makes really cool stuff, and I guess they're doing the best with what they have, but oh my god, if you haven't seen the Hori Splatoon headset, go look it up, because it's a mess.
My understanding is you have to have a splitter just to like have your phone plugged in to keep power on it, and have that plugged in itself, because it goes in through the lightning port on your or whatever your power port is on your phone.
Right.
So it's not just a audio jack that it uses. It's not well thought out, and it's not. Like you said, I don't think it's Hori's fault. I think that they're working with what they had to work with, what Nintendo gave them, and what Nintendo gave them was jack and squat.
To Hori's credit, it's also a cheaper headset. It's a $30 headset. It's pretty consumer friendly as far as price goes.
Right. Well, I think for a lot of starter players, I guess it would be perfectly acceptable. That's a perfectly acceptable price range. I guess Nintendo's aversion to having any sort of like streaming app on the Switch is kind of linked to this, because they don't want you to have you're not doing voice chat through the Switch itself. They don't want you to stream video There's not even a YouTube app on this thing.
Which makes no sense on this very portable device when the Wii U, they did it.
Right.
Why is that not available on the Switch?
Well, it's not only available on those, but it's available on the 3DS, or at least it was.
The Switch being basically a tablet that's also a home console, that thing is built to have streaming video apps on it. It doesn't make any sense.
I've read that this is all being done in the name of staying like family friendly. I guess having that phone app is an extra entry barrier that kind of deters people. But I don't think it's, in today's age, most everybody has a smartphone. I don't think it's that big of a barrier. I don't think it's going to stop abusive behavior. I mean, you can't really have an online community without some of that, and I wish that wasn't the case, but there's always going to be terrible people, and honestly, if you're shortchanging people because you're afraid that some parent might get a little upset that their child heard naughty words, maybe have the parents with those parental controls that you have, allow them to set it so that they can't have voice chat. Provide it for those who want it. I mean, there are companies chomping at the bit to work with Nintendo on this. Discord, which is my gaming voice chat app of choice, has expressed interest with working with Nintendo to create a Switch app. I think that's wonderful. I would love that. I would immediately adopt it. Even if it was in its like beta testing phase, I would jump on that. As far as I know, Nintendo hasn't taken up anybody. They're dead set on maintaining this squeaky clean environment that honestly detrimental to a lot of gameplay.
I will say, in defense of Nintendo and the Switch is still very young. It's barely a few months old. So maybe some of these things are coming. We obviously don't know yet. But it just seems so weird that voice chat wasn't a thing right out of the box and more easily implemented outside of having to do this app.
Part of me wonders if maybe, and this is just speculation, if the Switch itself can't handle streaming voice chat while a game is running. I guess it would be impossible to really say without running a test on it.
This is just the latest bizarre move in a very long line of bizarre moves that Nintendo has made when trying to get their online infrastructure up and going. It never really took off with the Wii or the Wii U. The whole friend code thing just, I feel like, clipped their wings by doing that. And now I feel like they're making it even harder for players to do a very simple function that you can do right out of the box with the other two major players. Or if you're on PC, which you have the greatest amount of options there.
It's such a weird thing because it's become such a normal...
we expect this out of Nintendo by now.
Exactly. Well, no, I was going to say it's... I agree with that, but I was going to say it's become such a normal thing to expect with games, to have this, and it's something that, for whatever reason, Nintendo can't get it right.
And it's weird because I felt like out of the gate, the Switch was doing a lot of things correct.
Yeah.
Like it's the cleanest and most efficient system that they've done since probably since the GameCube.
Well, and there's definitely been, I guess, some lessons that they've learned, or at least they seem to. Kind of like when they first talked about their online service for the Switch, they're like, it'll be cheap and you'll get games every month. And it was kind of like, okay, so it's kind of like PS Plus or Games for Gold on the Xbox, and then they were like, "Oh, but you can't keep the games," and we were like, "Excuse me." But then they turned around and they were like, "Oh no, it's like a subscription service. It's like Netflix.
Oh yeah,
we're just going to add games, and you can play them as long as you want, as long as you have the subscription." Which turns out to actually, I think that's pretty cool.
No, that's a great idea, but they're lying if they don't admit to being backpedalers of the year with that.
Oh, absolutely. That still proves my point, because it shows that they are at least listening, going, maybe we should do this differently. But it's also one of those things that when they screw up royally. They do it big. They Nintendo so hard that only they can Nintendo the way they Nintendo.
Well, I hate to sound like we're picking on Nintendo so much, especially right after we did our Super Nintendo Love Fest. But we've also got to address this other problem that Nintendo has right now. I understand that the Switch is just a few months old, but this library,
it's very frustrating.
It's really hard to be an early adopter Nintendo person.
Obviously, they had a killer app to launch.
No doubt, they launched with easily the game of the year, and I think most people are going to agree with that.
I mean, Breath of the Wild is fantastic. I could spend all day talking about that game. I'm still playing it. I still pick it up every couple of days to progress a little farther on those Korok seeds. I'll be doing that to the end of my days. But other than that, what other game was there that launched that would have made you buy that system? If you were someone who didn't care about The Legend of Zelda, or you didn't care about open world exploration, what was there?
Not much. And I'm pretty sure most people who bought 321 Switch felt kind of gypped.
The one person I know who bought it solely so that his kids would have something to play around with when they had friends over.
It still should have been a pack-in title.
It should have been.
But going back to your question, as far as other games at launch, I only own 2 games for the Switch right now, and that is Breath of the Wild and Binding of Isaac. Binding of Isaac I already own on 2 other platforms. So that's not really a system seller to me.
Right. And for the record, Binding of Isaac is on my Switch wish list right now. So you had, I think, Bomberman, which, if I remember right, didn't get great reviews.
I haven't followed any of the reviews for Bomberman, but I would not buy a Switch for Bomberman.
What else is there that would, if you were just now buying the system, what else is there that would entice you to do so?
Okay, now, at this point, there is at least some noteworthy titles.
Right. We're going back to the same scenario. You don't care about Legend of Zelda or open world games.
Mario Kart 8. And that's assuming you haven't already played it on the Wii U or have the Wii U version.
Right.
Splatoon 2.
Right.
ARMS.
And I feel like ARMS is one of those things that, like, you're probably not really going to buy a Switch to play unless you've already played it.
Right.
Because it's such a weird concept.
For the record, I have not played ARMS, and I'm sure it's a fine game. It is on my to-do list, but I would not buy a Switch based on ARMS alone. I understand that not everything can be the killer app. Like, I get that. I get that there's going to be dry spells. But I feel like there isn't enough third-party support, which is the same old story with Nintendo consoles. But at the same time, it is also 5 months old, so I'm trying not to be too harsh or get too discouraged. But I own those 2 games. I own Breath of the Wild and I own Binding of Isaac, and that was in March.
Right. And I also own Breath of the Wild, and I have Mario Kart 8 Deluxe, and as I stated earlier, I just got Splatoon 2.
So I think the problem is me not buying games.
We need to buy more. And I was actually on Amazon the other day, kind of putting together a wish list, and I didn't add very many games to my Switch wish list because there weren't a whole lot that I was, that I had to have. I mean, as excited as I was to see that there was going to be Skyrim on this thing, it was more about the fact that it could potentially run a game as big as Skyrim, and not the fact that it was Skyrim, because let's face it, I have played that thing to death. And that's what I feel a lot of these other titles that are not first party are ports. They're things that we have on other consoles, which if you haven't played them yet and you want to, Switch is probably a pretty good system to get them on because it's a portable system. Even with upcoming titles, this year we have the Mario Rabbids game.
I believe that's the next big one.
Yeah, that comes out next month. And then Mario Odyssey.
Which I think is going to be, next to Zelda, the best game on the Switch.
I feel like that's a system seller. In fact, I know a few people who are like, oh yeah, I'll get a Switch for this.
I know I'm dragging my feet on a couple of things. Like, I do want to get Mario Kart 8, and I do want to get ARMS, and I do want to get Splatoon 2. I'm going to get Mario Odyssey on day one.
Right. I've already pre-ordered it. But here's another thought, though. With the success of the Switch so far, so much, like, it's doing so well in sales that people in Japan, for the release of Splatoon, are still lining up by the thousands to get raffle tickets in the hopes that their numbers will be drawn so that they can buy it. Not the game, but the console, so that they can play the game. So my question is, does it really matter? As someone who already owns one, I feel like, yeah, it needs more because I would play it. I would if I had more to play on it, I would be doing so.
Right.
But in the grand scheme of things, are we being unreasonable? In the grand scheme of things, are they doing just fine?
Nintendo is obviously doing fine. The Switch is the highest selling system right now, and the demand isn't going down anytime soon. I guess I'm just trying to think back to other system launches where it seems like this is always a problem when a new console launches.
And honestly, I think part of our worry might stem from how things went with the Wii U. We had a slow drip of games with that pretty much throughout its console life, except that one year where they just like hit after hit after hit. But for the most part, it was just a constant, slow dripping faucet of games.
Well, I'm glad that you mentioned the Wii U's console lifespan, because that is our next topic that we're going to talk about. Recently, the rumors came out about the PlayStation 5. And the rumors are saying that it could be as early as 2018, 2019. And the rumor suggests that the PlayStation 5 will be yet another half step with more 4K support. Now, what I want to talk about is right off the heels of the PlayStation 4 Pro and soon the Xbox One X, which is another half step. Is this going to be the new norm? Are we going to start seeing more half steps? Is the PlayStation 5 just going to be a slightly souped up PlayStation 4?
Short answer, yes. I think this is the new norm. Partly because our hardware is increasing at a fast enough rate right now that it's and software demands are increasing at a high enough rate that frankly the specs of the systems of the Xbox One and PlayStation 4 that launched aren't really cutting it anymore. Especially when it comes to hard drive space, which I know they're not necessarily upgrading that too much, but I think it's going to become the new norm to release slightly more powerful systems that are really just reiterations of the previous ones. I mean, Sony may keep numbering them, but I think we're gonna see less of these huge releases and more of a, hey guys, this is the next new thing. But yes, I do think that things like the Xbox One X and PlayStation 5 are what we're going to see from here on out.
I understand something like the PS4 Pro and the Xbox One X being that half step. That's fine. But I feel like Sony calling the PlayStation 5 like the next big thing and it only being, more 4K support, basically being, PS4 Pro Part 2.
Right.
It just feels kind of lame to me.
Well, yeah.
I always thought it was exciting when you would get the new console generation coming around. Love that time.
Oh, yeah.
And now I feel like that's kind of going to go the way of the dodo if they're going to do these half steps instead every 4 years. It felt like the last console generation with the Xbox 360 and the PS3 and the Wii was abnormally long.
I remember reading that the 360 had the longest lifespan of a console.
You're absolutely right. The Xbox One came out 8 years after the Xbox 360. The PS4 came out 7 years after the PS3. And Nintendo has consistently kept 5 to 6 years between their console cycles.
Yes, Nintendo is very consistent, both with their good things and their bad things.
For all the crapping that we did on Nintendo today, I will at least give them credit for making the Switch feel like a big step up from the Wii U.
Well, yeah, no, they absolutely, and even the Wii U was a pretty big step up in fidelity from the Wii. I didn't think it was at first, but when I went to play a Wii game after I had been playing the Wii U for a while, it was noticeably different.
But I also feel like the Wii U should have been the Wii at that time. Does that make sense? Like when the Wii came out, it should have been as powerful as the Wii U was.
I agree, but I think you're right though. Nintendo has been consistent. They've been releasing consoles, and I don't think that's including the handhelds.
No, I'm just thinking of home console.
They've been releasing systems very consistently, and for the most part, they have always been sizable upgrades from their predecessor. And that used to be what we got with everybody. I mean, I remember when I had an Xbox, or I still have an Xbox, but when it came out, it was like, oh man, we haven't even tapped into how, to how powerful this thing could be. Like, we haven't even explored the depths of it. And they were like, the Xbox 360 is coming, it's going to be way more powerful. And I just remembered thinking, how? And then, of course, it came out, and I was like, oh, that's how.
One of my favorite things about new console cycles, other than the new consoles, is seeing what developers are achieving at the end of the previous cycle's life. Some of the best stuff comes out towards the end of a console's lifespan. A good example would be The Last of Us on the PS3.
Right.
Which completely pushes that system all the way to the edge and then some.
One that comes to mind for me, and it's just because I was a big fan of the series, was Halo 3 versus Halo 4. Now, I'm not comparing gameplay or story or anything, just what it looked like in comparison. And it was almost like it was on two different consoles. And I think you're absolutely right. It's really great to look back and see, man, they really found new and interesting ways to push the tech. Another really great example was Super Mario Galaxy 2, which the first game, phenomenal. Second game was gorgeous. I mean, I would say that was the best looking game on that system.
Another good example of this would be Grand Theft Auto 5, which came out on the Xbox 360 and the PlayStation 3 just before the PlayStation 4 and the Xbox One launch. And that is one of the best looking games from the last generation.
Well, let me ask you this. Since we're discussing console launches and half steps, not even getting into the subject of backwards compatibility, do you think that maybe having these half steps where you're essentially doing the same system and you can play the same games on it, but kind of like how the new 3DS can play a lot of games better than the old 3DS, but there are certain games that the new 3DS can play that the old 3DS can't. Do you think that is a better system instead of jumping to a whole new console generation where, hey guys, guess what? Sony doesn't want to do backwards compatibility because no one actually wants that, apparently. Or
No, nobody wants that.
Or Microsoft throwing up Xbox One games on the backwards compatibility list for the Xbox Who Cares system that gets announced. I mean, what are your thoughts on that?
If we're gonna do half steps, they better still be able to play the current games that are on the market right now. Because if you're gonna do half steps, every 4 years, trying to get someone to upgrade, I don't think is going to work.
Right, that's definitely too soon.
Well, I feel like, and I'm going to keep using Sony as an example, talking about the PlayStation 5. If all the PlayStation 5 does is give you a sharper 4K resolution, to me, that's not the PlayStation 5. It kind of bothers me going back to Nintendo and the new 3DS. They announced that, okay, so we have this new 3DS that will only be able to, you can only play some games on it, which is basically Xenoblade for the 3DS. They haven't made anything else that would utilize that hardware. When Xenoblade Chronicles came to the 3DS, which by the way is kind of mind-blowing that they can get that game to run on a 3DS. I had high hopes that, if they can do that with this, what else are they going to do to utilize this extra power? And the answer is nothing.
Perhaps it was more work than it was worth. I'm not trying to insult Xenoblade Chronicles.
If nothing else, it gave me a copy of Xenoblade Chronicles that I can play at work. So I'll be forever grateful for that.
But hey, I mean, you're about to get a copy of Xenoblade Chronicles 2 that you can play at work on a much more powerful system.
Oh Lord, and I'm gonna. After Mario Odyssey, Xenoblade Chronicles 2 is my next major purchase. Well, I guess we'll just have to wait and see how this all plays out. It could be for the best, could not be. We don't know. We'll just wait and see. I think that's going to do it for us on this episode of Start Pause. Be sure to follow us on Twitter at StartPausePod and on Facebook at StartPausePod. So I'm going to take off and go play your copy of Splatoon 2.
I'm a squid now, I'm a kid now. I'm a squid, I'm a kid, I'm a squid now.
So long.
Bye!